Good morning. The meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. The meeting is being held at the office of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North 3rd Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, May 29, 2024, and the time is 10 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Roussel,
Here.
Commissioner Leone,
Here.
Commissioner Romick,
Here.
Commissioner Guidry, Commissioner Frazier,
Here.
5 present and a quorum.
Thank you. Before we get started, I just want to recognize that this is a short week for the staff with the holiday being Monday. But like the rock stars they are, they got everything in time and they got it set up for the meeting. So they deserve definitely our thanks, and we appreciate everything y'all do. Thank you. Definitely. We're going to move on to the approval of the minutes. Any questions or any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Next item to be considered is the consideration of change orders.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 553 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 529, place 23 in pending status, and deny 1. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve 529 change orders and place 23 in pending and deny 1 for reasons given by staff.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 20 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 20. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve all 20 prior pending change orders as reviewed by the staff.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Moving on to consideration of tax sales.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 1 tax sale cancellation in Lafayette Parish due to being erroneously sold. Staff requests approval of 1 tax sale cancellation.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the 1 tax sale cancellation.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. We'll move on to appeals. Mr. Hoffman, if you'd swear in the witnesses.
You'll be testifying in today's hearing. I'll have you stand up. I'm going to administer an oath. I'll indicate to you individually to affirm the oath. I will take your name. Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, full truth, and nothing but the truth. Say with me here, I do. Right there, Miller. Karen, I do. I do. Yeah, both, and I do. Leon G. Bear, I do. Thank you. Y'all may have a seat.
Appraisers, if you will unmute and turn your camera on, I'm going to administer an oath to you. Sandy, you're still muted. If you'll unmute for me. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Cody?
I do.
Josh?
I do.
Sandy?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, moving along to the appeal portion of our docket. Our first appeal we'll take up today is the appeal of Oliver D. Guyot versus Assessor Errol G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-77075. You can go first, sir.
My name is Leon G. Bear. I'm a certified real estate appraiser. I'm not the property owner. I'm representing him on this property. When I initially got involved, I took pictures of the inside of the property. So those that are in all my report and in the other reports are actual pictures of the condition. The property has no working kitchen, has no working bathrooms. No air conditioning. It's being repaired. The assessment last year was $450,400, and it was $450 54,400 the year before, and they tried to raise it to 632 without doing a single thing to the property. It went up that much money. But anyway, when I initially did the report for him, I said, here, let me take third-party pictures to prove that it's, legitimate. And he went to the assessor's office and tried to get it reduced, and they said no. So he came to me, well, you only have a small window to do this. I cobbled together a report just showing an average value. And when I submitted it, it was, I think, very high, but I had come up with 568,000, which was a huge increase, but it was a lot less than what the assessor was asking. They rejected that. So that's why we're before you today. I'd also like to point out the assessor did an appraisal of the property. And if you read it, it says it's based on a hypothetical condition. And it says that if the hypothetical condition isn't valid, then the report isn't valid. And they clearly state that it was based on a visual exterior inspection that assumes that the interior of the property to be in the same or similar condition as the exterior. Well, it's freshly painted on the outside. The roof looks good, but it's got a leak in it, and I took a picture of that. So those facts aren't true. The interior is not in the same condition as the exterior. So I'll submit his hypothetical condition isn't met, so that the values that they came up with aren't realistic. Also, their report, they took a property that was in they labeled us as fair condition. They took one building in fair condition, one in poor condition, and one in average condition, and then average the values. Well, why would you take something that's livable with air conditioning, bathrooms and kitchens, and average the values? That's not fair. That's not fair market value. So that's.
Okay, thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Good morning, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property is 7922 Handsome Street. Our prior lien date was 2019, so any prior values were based off of much older sales. So the quadrennial this year was for much more recent sales, and that was the reason for the change. The analysis landed at 632,900. The board of review affirmed the 632,900. We did go out and visit the property, and we did do a field inspection, and actually we did confirm it to have some condition issues, and it's definitely substandard. It's not fully repaired for sure, and I want to acknowledge that for the record. In reviewing this and just adjusting for preparing for this hearing, there's a couple of factors that I think that are affecting this property. I do think that our value 632,900 is too high. I think our independent number came up at 674 is too high. And when reviewing this, the land is just substantial. It's a big size lot. It's skewing the number on the upper side. And it's also a decent sized square footage. It's 2,900 square foot. And it's in a great location as well. So it's got three factors of real estate that are kind of driving those values a little bit. With that being said, as preparing for this, I looked at the tax commission's, the taxpayers exhibits. Mr. Leon is well known and in our office. I've known him for years. And I told myself, I said, well, why didn't we offer the 568,500? That seems to be a decent number. With all things being said, it kind of fell in between our high end and what I feel is the tax commission's low end. We attempted to contact Mr. Guillot. He was unwilling to settle. He had saw the tax commission for 470, and he would prefer to go with the lower number, of course. So we are willing to move off of our number. I felt if it would have been in front of me during the board review, I would have offered the 568,500. And I think that your number is a decent number.
Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Ted Bolton, the President of the Louisiana Tax Commission. I appraised this property the pictures that were included in the border review stuff showed an unfinished house. I asked the property owner, and there was no bathroom, no kitchen, and the pictures are dated in August of 23 of the interior that I have. And I appraised it as I used it as, it was basically uninhabitable, because if you don't have a bathroom, you don't have a kitchen, you can't really live there. So my appraised value is $470,000 as is.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
I got it. Just a quick question. I take it, just looking at the pictures, that we're remodeling this house. I take it by looking at the pictures that this house is in the middle of a renovation. Thank you.
Fern Street went from 582 to 463. 626 Fern went from 450 to 432. Almost every property in that block went down. This one went way up. There's really no market. Oh, sorry. Should I repeat that? Okay. I'm sorry to be.
Okay. Doctor? Any questions, additional questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to go with the value of 568,500. That's 216,000 for the land, 352,500 for the imp.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon.
The next appeal we'll take up is the appeal of Richard M. Ireland Jr. versus Assessor Errol G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76213. Mr. Ireland.
Which property are we doing? Broadway. Broadway, okay. Got it. I have two. I just didn't know which one we're doing first.
Good morning.
Morning. I have a long history with the tax commission and this property. I bought it in 2007. I've been here to appeal the assessment in 2011, 2016, 2020, and now 2024. The problem with this property has to do, I think, with the mass appraisal system. My property, I'm in a nice neighborhood. I'm not far from Audubon Park, and I'm surrounded for the most part by really nice Victorian places. I don't have one of those. I have a 1961 infill, which is a 8-foot ceiling brick, totally boring house. And that's really the issue, because the mass appraisal system doesn't have a way to take that into account. And so the first year I was here, the assessment was 600. The tax commission appraiser had it at 475, and the commission adopted that number. The next year it went to 700. The appraisal was 510. The commission adopted that number. Then it was 975. The BOR actually reduced it to 880. The appraiser was at 645, and the commission adopted the 645. This year, the appraisal went to $1,053,000. But I have to admit that Russell Almaraz, who I have mostly dealt with at the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office, is not a bad guy. Okay. And the last time I was here, after he's right back there.
Now, they swore to tell the truth, you know
I
that.
did.
huh?
I'm,
Okay.
I'm
Just checking.
really, he is, I didn't, he's not a bad guy. Oh, should I be closer? Wow. Okay. You want an echo? Um, this year, the appraiser or the assessor actually reduced it from the 1,053,000 down to 895. Which I still think is a little high. But it was very, it's not not totally out of the ballpark, but it's high. And so, I appealed that one and the tax commission sent their appraiser out and the tax commission appraiser is at 810. 810 is a number I'm happy with. And so the assessor has also done their own appraisal and he's at 883, I believe. He'll tell me if I'm wrong. The problem still persists in the fact that they can't, come to grips with the fact that my house doesn't fit the neighborhood. And it's been my theme for the last however many years it's been, 3 or 4 trips. This is my house. It's in their appraisal that you have. It's a 2-story, 8-foot ceiling brick. Totally boring. Totally boring. Their comparables are these, which are, if not totally Victorian-esque. And that's how they end up with a number that's higher than it should be. I mean, appraisals all depend on the comparables that you pick. We all know that, right? And so that's really the issue. And I'm thinking, next year or next time when I talk to Russell, we'll come to the right number. So I would request that the commission adopt its own appraisal of the 810.
Thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Good morning, once again, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property 451 Broadway, Mr. Ireland did come in during the open rolls and met with Mr. Almaraz. The original value was $1,053,700. We were reduced that during our open inspection period time to $895,700, which was affirmed by the Board of Review. Our independent analysis landed at a very similar number at $883,400, and the tax commission is at $810. I think that we are pretty close, similar to the prior case. He is in just a really high-end area surrounded by really high-end real estate. The average price of real estate in that area is probably around $360 to $370, ranging up to close to $600 a square foot. So we're talking high-end real estate. At the current value, we have them on at $260.53 a square foot, which was considerably less than what typical properties sell for in those neighborhoods. So I feel that Russell did a good job in making a reduction. And reviewing this, I do feel like there is a little bit of movement, but I prepare for these things, and if I feel we have movement, I try to offer it. And I didn't come up with a whole lot of movement. I think we're in the ballpark, but in a matter of to compromise, I revised the value to $843 total, which would be $283,500 for the land, $559,500. And I think that Mr. Ireland is correct. His house doesn't really fit this neighborhood, but he's just in a high dollar zip code, and it drives those values up in those neighborhoods.
Thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. I'm Cody Lowry with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property at 451 Broadway Street. I came to a total value of $810,000 with the undisputed land value of $283,500 and the improvements valued at $526,500.
Questions from the commission?
Just a recap for the assessor, you started in excess of $1 million, then went to 895, then went to 883, and now are proposing 843,000.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Commissioner, I have a motion to accept the assessor's new value of 283,500 on the land, 559,500 in the building, total of $843,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
What was the number, please? 843, okay.
Next, we have the appeal of Richard M. Ireland Jr. versus Assessor Errol G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76214.
Okay. This house I bought in 2018. It's a raised basement house in New Orleans. There are lots of those. I have another one on Hillary Street, where the upstairs and part of the downstairs is one unit and the other part of the downstairs is a different unit. My plan was to do the same thing with this house. This is a rental house. The other one that we talked about was my residence. As I undertook to do that, I learned that I cannot do that. That there were two reasons given to me by the city. One is that I cannot create new living space under old living space. Okay, I could expand outward and make living space in the backyard, but I may not make new living space under old living space. I've never seen a citation for that, but that's what they told me, and they were pretty emphatic. They posted something on my wall. Okay. The other problem that I have with that house is that where the floor of the downstairs is not high enough above the curb for flood purposes, even though the house is in an X flood zone. And the ceiling of the downstairs is less than 7 feet. And so that combination of things prevents me from being able to make living space out of the downstairs. Okay. And my intention was to rent it out. And I do rent out the upstairs. And I told the people in the upstairs, you can store some things downstairs, but you may not live down there. Okay. And so this house barely breaks even as a rental. I went to the Board of Review, and we had a meeting with the Orleans Parish people. And they said, and I showed them pictures that I think are in the exhibit packet that you have of a big empty basement. Since then, it's been filled in with stuff. There's washing machines and not like a laundromat, but like machines that I can maybe fix and use. But there's no living space down there. They said, well, we'll send out somebody tomorrow and look at it. And I said, well, that'll be great. Come on by. And they came, and the guy walked in. He said, this ain't living space. I said, I know. Okay. The reason that it matters is I sent in this little exhibit to y'all. And basically what this is my house is in the top row, and every other house on my block, down my street, across the street, come back up the other side. So it's these, 15 or so houses that are right there. And they're all essentially the same. They're all built in like 1915. They're older houses. They're all raised basement except for maybe one or two exceptions. It's a one-story. And they all use the basement. The house that I bought was owned by the same couple since 1965, and they had not done a thing to it. It's a 1965 museum. In my kitchen, the kitchen faucets come out the wall, and the water flows down into the sink. And the countertop is stainless steel. But that's the way it's been since forever. Okay. I don't know if you're interested in this. This house actually has in the attic gas lines. And these gas lines feed the light fixtures in like the sconces. Because when it was built, you had gas light and those lines are still there. Now they, of course, we abandoned that and the lights are electric. So I'm not saying I should get a discount because there's gas lines in the attic, but it's interesting how old the house is. I hadn't run across that before. So when the appraisal came out, they are assessing me based on 2,826 square feet, which would be both the upstairs and the downstairs. And I said, well, that's not right because I can't use the downstairs. The city won't let me. And so I did my own calculation saying, what if I just use their same square foot numbers and all of that and omit the downstairs from the calculation? And I didn't keep the same land value. And I did that and I came out with 342,000 is the appropriate value. Their value is 451,000 based on the 2,800 something square feet. I'm just going to use 28 and 14 as a shortcut. I was hoping that once the guy came and saw what the situation was, because he said, this ain't living space, I'm going to go back and change it in the computer. And I thought, wow, this would be great. You know, the assessor's office is really coming through. It never changed in the computer, except I went to look at it yesterday and now it's changed. Okay. Now it says there's a, I don't have an exhibit for that, but it said 28 something. And now it says adjusted living space is 1,400. And it could be because the Mr. Lowry, the LTC appraiser, came and looked at it and he said, this ain't living space. I said, yeah, I know. And he did his and he came up with a value of 400,000. So he was higher than me, but not by that much. I still like my number better, but I can't say that he's wrong in that sense. But it's interesting that the assessor, even though they have reduced the square feet down to the 1,400, their value is still 451. In the meantime, they did an appraisal and sent me a copy of it where they reduced the value, but went and found comparables that produced a value of $580,000 or $90,000, which puts it, if you look at this chart that I gave you, puts it higher than any other house in the neighborhood. And I'm just mystified how you can take away half the square feet of a house and almost double the value. That doesn't make sense. It kind of lessens your belief in appraisals. But in any event, I think now that they've changed it on the website, in the future we'll be okay because we'll be dealing with a different square foot number from the beginning. And so my request today is that it be reduced down to the 342, which you can see the calculation here of how it works. You know, I keep the land value as it is. I apply the average neighborhood square foot value to my actual number of square feet and come up with 342. So to me, that's the right number.
Okay, thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office.
Good morning, once again, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property 1616 Pine Street. Mr. Ireland brings up some good points, some interesting points, and some things that I actually agree with him on. I was a little confused on some things. These are, we've had a few of these appeals in the past, the dreaded raised basements. They drive us crazy and they're difficult to account for. You count them, they're not finished. You don't count them, they're finished. They're difficult to appraise in the mass appraisal system. Without muddying the waters too much, I kind of agreed with Mr. Ireland when I looked at Russell's independent appraisal at 584,800. I said, how did we end up so much higher? So I'm under oath, you know, so I got to say, I thought he was off his rocker for a second, but the appraisal actually does support that. So I think we may have some errors in our values. But with that being said, that's our problem. And I'm going to, agree with the tax commission's value of 400,000. I feel that's a fair offer. But I do want to say that I do think that we may have some undervalued properties in the neighborhood.
Oh, you're gonna
Thank you.
blame me now.
Hmm?
You're gonna blame me with the neighbors.
Oh, no, sir. I'll blame Russell. Russell gets blamed for everything.
Okay, can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. Cody Lowry with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property at 1616 Pine Street. Using the fair market value, we came to a undisputed land value of 158,840, an improvements value of 241,160 for a total market value of 400,000.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
Mr.
Yes,
Chair, I
I
have a-
have. Yes, I have one, Mr. Chairman. David, help me out when you talk about, I guess, space for a basement and if it's livable. What determines that when you into the total value of living space for a resident? Because I'm a little bit not sure about how
So
that
it-
was explained.
Yes, sir. In Orleans Parish, they're called raised basements. So these aren't subterranean due to the soil in Orleans Parish. So they're essentially look like 2 stories, or they may be a fraction of it underneath the ground. They're not full subterranean like you would find in other cities. So they're essentially 2-story homes. Many of them in Orleans Parish are not finished out, and many of them are finished. And they're fully blown out, they're used, game rooms, rec rooms, flop houses, whatever. They're fully finished. They may have a lower ceiling height, 7 foot than the typical, but they're finished out. And if they're finished, we count them as living area. And it's a battle that we have in the city. As I said, if we discount it, we are getting all the neighbors saying that you're not counting their basement, they're getting full use of it. So you're giving me the same run rate as a property that doesn't have it. And then when we do count it, sometimes we have issues where it's not finished. So it cuts both ways on us. And they're just difficult, they're difficult properties to capture 100% of the time.
Thank you, Mr. David.
Okay, additional questions?
Yes, sir. I have 2 questions for the taxpayer. Could you confirm that you bought this property in 2018 for 342,000?
Yes, that's correct.
So your current assessment basically is the same price that what you bought it for in 2018?
I didn't look and see what the current assessment is, but if
Were
it's,
your requested value at the 342,938 is, I guess, my point.
well, that's a coincidence because I did the math. I didn't go back and look. I didn't compare it to that. But if it looks like, if the current one is 342, then that's what it is.
And just to revisit the livable, non-livable, your ceiling height being 7 or less means it's not in compliance with code, thus the inability to make that livable space under code.
Well, that's one of the reasons. They also won't let me upgrade it to livable space because it's under old livable space. Now, there might be a process where I can get a variance and do things like that.
Or
But-
potentially raise it to create a greater ceiling height down below to use it as rentable space?
Oh, that would be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do that.
Okay, any additional questions by the commission? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr.
Chair, I make the motion to, of a land value of 158,400, imp value of 241,600 for a total value of 400,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Teresa Ann Young versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 23221722185.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You can go ahead and get started.
I own a single-family residence in the St. John Village Assessment District. We border a very desirable assessment district by St. John, but we are a separate assessment district and less desirable. I was assessed a total of $404,000 for my property, undisputed land value of 67,400, and the property value at 336,600. I agree with the Louisiana Tax Commission's appraisal. That appraisal was 67, the undisputed land value and a property value of, I'm sorry, I just had this up. Property value, improvement value of 257,200. I agree with the appraiser's assessment, the commission's appraiser's assessment. I also did some research and averaging on what similar properties in my assessment district, as well as 4 properties in the Bayou St. John Assessment District, what the average assessment per square footage, per square foot is, and I came up with an average of $171.26. And the price, the assessment per square foot of my structure was at $226.37. And that's $55 per square foot more. And there's really nothing exceptional about my house. It's very much the same quality as the average of the 15 properties that I used to get that number and their assessments. I want to make sure that it's being valued and assessed as a single family residence. It was formerly a double, but it was legally converted before I bought the property in 2021. So I want to make sure that it's not still being valued as a double. And I really don't understand why I'm $55 per square foot more higher of a higher assessment than, you know, the average of the properties around me.
New Orleans Assessor's Office?
David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office, once again. The property is 2832 St. Anne Street. Our quadrennial analysis landed at 404,000. The value was affirmed by the Board of Review at 404. Our independent analysis landed this value at 436. The tax commission values at 324,600. And really the one issue that we had, which is the biggest issue for us, is that they valued it as an average condition. The property was recently acquired in 21 for $445, and it was listed as an excellent condition. But we feel if they would have just put in an appropriate condition, they would have probably been right around the 404. So we're not asking for a raise, of course. We feel our 404 is more than fair value.
Thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Good morning. I appraised the property at 2832 St. Anne Street at $324,600 with an undisputed land value of $67,400 and an improvement value of $257,200. As for that current sale in 2021, that was not in the multi-list, and I did not have a way of knowing if this was an arm's length sale or of its condition. So during my inspection, I put it in average condition.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the taxpayer. Can you confirm the purchase price in 2021?
Yes, in 2021, the peak of the market, I did buy this property at $445,000, and it was a bidding war, which was average for that time. The market's changed drastically, especially in Orleans Parish since then.
And for the assessor's office, can you confirm in your assessment, is it a double or a single family?
It is a single family, And just one thing, the sale is in the multi-list. It's MLS number 2319053, just for the record. I'm not sure, but it is in the multi-list.
Could you give me that MLS number again, please?
2319053.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, one more question, if I may, for the taxpayer. On our briefing sheet, it was showing that you were requesting prior to the testimony a land value of 67,400 and improvements of 312,000 for a total of 379,400. Is that correct?
At the time that I filed that, I guess that is what I came up with. I think the market's changed even more since then.
Any additional questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, make a motion to accept the assessor's total of 404,000, land of 67,400, improvements of 336,600.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Thank you.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Adam Comrie versus Assessor Errol G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-76105. And the taxpayer is not here.
Okay, New Orleans Assessor's Office.
David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property is 213 Lower Line Street. Our value originally was 690,000. It was reduced at the board review to 655,000. We did not appeal that. The taxpayer did. We contacted the taxpayers because our independent analysis, along with the tax commission's values, were all essentially the same. It's a $5,000 difference. We offered to settle at the lower value. The taxpayer did not respond. We're fine with either value. We can save ourselves a change order, keep it at 655, but these are not material differences, and we could live with either one.
Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Joshua Laverne, LTC appraiser. I inspected and appraised the property at 213 Lower Line Street. The sales comparison approach was the only approach utilized in my analysis. The approach produced a value of 650,000 with 162,000 attributed to the disputed land and 488,000 to the improvement.
Any questions by the commission? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to accept the Parish Board of Review's value of 162,000 land, 493,000 improvements, total of 655,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection? Motion is adopted.
Please note that the remainder of our docket has either been settled or withdrawn.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion to the motion? Any objection? Motion is adopted. We are adjourned at 10:40.